Hello. So I haven't made a video in about 5 months. Doesn't matter, it's not like I have that many viewers. But I know that the viewers I have been waiting in anticipation for a video on how to hear the Lord's voice. So, here we go. How to hear the Lord's voice. That term is a very narrow term for a very broad subject of how to communicate with God, basically. Now, many Christians believe that God will show you signs, indirectly, or hearing the voice of God is once in a lifetime thing, and they just don't think that it's common for God to communicate with you. But I believe that God is always talking, no matter what, and that He's on one radio frequency and our minds are on another, and that we need to tune into God's frequency to hear Him speak to us. Okay, so how can God talk to us? Typical visions, pictures in our minds, other people, audible voice. That's never happened to me, but I've heard of it, plenty of stories of it happening to other people, so that's completely possible. But the way that I mostly communicate, worship, God can communicate with you by showing you a butterfly. That is communicating. That's God showing you His great design and all that. That's great, and I think that's very important. Nature's important, worship's important, but I'm talking about the type of communication that's very personal and direct. So the way that I usually communicate with God is through my thoughts and my journaling. When I want to talk to God, I pray, hey God, what's up? And I ask Him to talk to me, and the first thoughts that I get are 9 times out of 10 His response to me. So, that sounds really crazy, and it sounds like I hear voices in my head, but I don't really care, because I know I'm not crazy, because I'm really smart. Well, okay, I'm not, because I know that I'm smart, and I know that I would know if I had a mental disability. So I had this thing from God. I had this gift from God, this wonderful gift where He chooses to talk to me. How amazing is that? The Lord of creation talks to me. And I journal, so I write down the things that I say to Him, and I write down His responses. And here are some examples. This was December 4th. I think that I feel icky because this is me talking. I think that I feel icky because I don't feel well prepared for any of my 3 tests tomorrow, and I was angry at my mother and Erica. And He said, see, anger doesn't make you feel better in the long run. It's good to confront your feelings, though. Don't just let them fester. But always realize, Christine, that you can come to me immediately with anything. I know that's not always satisfying for you, but it's a discipline you should learn. Okay, so, yeah. That's not a verse from the Bible. That's not, something I've heard on TV before. It was just God talking to me, dialoguing with me, having a conversation with me. God is a living God. Living people talk to each other. It's not one-sided. It's not a monologue. And a lot of Christians believe that prayer is just you telling God things, and you don't know, or you just assume that He hears you and that He's gonna do whatever He wants to do because of what you said to Him. I don't think that. I think that God sent His Son to die on the cross for us so that He could have a close personal relationship with us, and I think that includes conversations. So when I have quiet times, 20 minutes of it, a good portion of the quiet times I have with God are just writing stuff, and just having conversations with Him. And then I'll read the Bible, and reading the Bible is very important. And I think that the Bible is the #1 location for revelation. So if you're praying and you're like, hey God, talk to me, don't expect all these revelations to pop up in your mind when they're already in the Bible, you could just go read the Bible God's already done that for us. But I think that he does tell us specific special things, too, that we miss out on a lot. So, how do you know it's God's voice? What if you're just making it up? These are legitimate questions that I struggle with, and so does every other Christian I know that does this. I just don't know sometimes. And a lot of the times, actually, I'm talking to God and I'm asking him to, say things to me, and he tells me things, and he tells me to do things that are out of my comfort zone, one, or make me, like, put more effort into following him, and I get aggravated and I don't want to do it. So I'm like, God, that wasn't actually you, and I bet I just heard your voice wrong. And then I'm like, I can never hear your voice right, God. I suck, and I'm so angry. And it sounds really ridiculous, but it screws me over sometimes. Sometimes, though, I just don't know if it's God's voice. Most of the time, it's me being disobedient and being lethargic. But here's an example of me just not knowing if it was God or not. The other day I was driving and I was like, God, I just want to glorify you in my driving. And I got this thought immediately of, last Friday there was a massacre in Newtown, Connecticut. And I felt like God was telling me, go to Newtown, Connecticut. Go to a Walmart. This Walmart that I have specified for you. 5:30, January 22nd, 2013, and go to cashier number 4 and meet this woman named Martha and tell her that I haven't forgotten her. And I live 4 hours away from Newtown, Connecticut. I got my license less than a month ago, so my parents aren't going to be like, oh, yeah, sure, Christine, skedaddle, go on down to Newtown. And it's like, okay, that's extremely risky, so out of my comfort, well, it's not really out of my comfort zone, but it's like, did I just make that up? But then it's also hard for me to believe that I just made that up, because who thinks of things like that? Crazy people. So, I have this book called How to Hear God's Voice. I haven't read all of it, but what I have read has been extremely effective, and I think that it's just a good old read. How to Hear God's Voice by Mark and Patty Virkler. Virkler. So, yeah, how to hear God's voice. I think it's extremely important if you want to have a relationship with God. It's like step 1. Amen.